Welcome everyone to the webinar. My name is Kim Gaxiola, for those of you who don't know me. I'm a certified financial planner and founder of Tech Girl Financial. We help women professionals and women in the technology industry help to achieve a work optional lifestyle. And we do that through our investment management and financial planning services. We'd like to start by extending a happy Veterans Day to everyone. For you that are veterans and for family members of service members, we thank you. We know that freedom is not free, and we are very appreciative of you and your families. We're happy to have with us today all of you, as well as Jackie Wilkie. And so I am going to go over a few housekeeping items before we get started. The first is that all participants will be placed on mute. If you have a question, you can email Victor at techgirlfinancial.com. It's VICTOR at techgirlfinancial.com. Throughout the presentation, email him your questions and we will answer those at the end. The webinar is being recorded today, and a replay will be available for those who have registered to listen to the webinar. And finally, at the end of the webinar, we will have a short survey. We'd love to hear your feedback about the presentation, as well as suggestions of things you would like to learn about financial topics for the future. So today, our presentation focus is on women, wellness, and wealth. And joining me is Jackie Wilkie, Vice President and Advisor Consultant at First Trust Portfolios. Jackie is a speaker, author, consultant, and coach who focuses on business development and innovation. She's the author of Insights and Innovation, a business development blog for financial services and enterprises. And we are really lucky to have her today to share some key insights on wellness and wealth. So Jackie, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Kim. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here today. Kim and Victor are incredible partners of myself and the firm that I work for. I work for a firm called First Trust Portfolios. Some of you may have heard of us, some of you may have not. Our business is on the asset management side. So if you're familiar with us, it's probably because you saw some of our investment products in your portfolio, if you work with Kim and Victor, or in maybe some other investment opportunities you have. And why we're here today. You know, 2020 has been a year for the ages. We're going to be forever changed by this year, but what I think this year really brought into focus was finances, family, health, and wellness. And so my job at First Trust, I work with advisors and teams, you know, the elite advisors in our industry. I'm so fortunate to work with Kim and Victor. They're a part of that group to understand how the financial services, how we can always do a better job of serving the needs of women investors, whether you are building wealth, you're inheriting wealth, you're married, you're single, divorced, whatever your situation may be, whatever your past is like with your experiences with money and where you're going, there's never too early of a time to start thinking about your wealth and your wellness and how it's all very much integrated, but also it's never too late. So a little bit about me. I'm currently coming to you all in Chicago. I'm one of three girls. So I have two sisters. My parents, they actually both work in finance as well. So money was a very open topic for us growing up. My parents taught us the foundations of financial literacy, saving. We had different piggy banks. One goes for saving, in which my parents would match the quarters that we put in there. One was for spending, so that was a separate piggy bank. And it's always been a very open conversation for us. And what I've learned over the years, especially in my professional career, I've been at First Trust for about 10 years now, working in finance, talking with other women in my life, with my personal and professional networks, not everyone has had the same experience. And depending on what our past experiences have been, what we were taught about money from a very young age, what we saw other people in our lives go through with money, it really impacts how we experience money, how we react to money, whether it's emotionally, even physically. So what we're going to be talking about today is how do you take a critical look at where you're at with your finances, with your relationship with money, and if it's time to reframe what you define as wealth, what you're placing the value on, and how your money is going to best serve you today, for generations to come, and in legacy. So really excited that you all joined us today. Like Kim mentioned, if you have any questions, please send them to Victor, and we'll try to get to them at the end of this call. So if you aren't aware, there's a lot happening with women and wealth. So women are some of the fastest growing entrepreneurs. They are building businesses. They are building wealth. They're more involved in decision making in the family assets. They're also caring for children. They're caring for aging parents. They're caring for those around them. They're set to inherit, if they're younger women, they're set to inherit about $30 trillion over the next decade in the great wealth transfer that we're going to be seeing. But then we're also experiencing a lot of transitions. Women are living longer than men. And we have a high rate of divorce in our country. And what that means is women who maybe haven't been in the role of decision maker, either due to a transition in life, like loss of a spouse, divorce, or maybe inheriting wealth, are going to be controlling more and more of the assets out there. So what does that mean for us? And why is money a good thing, right? Money is not evil. The wealth that you're building or you're inheriting is actually one of the greatest weapons we have to realize the change we want to see in the world around us, and realize change we want to see for ourselves and for other women that are important to us. So I think this is interesting. According to the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, there are 8 dimensions of wealth by definition. So if you take a look on there, some of those are kind of obvious, right? But some are kind of surprising to me. Financial being one of those. As women, typically money is not our favorite topic of conversation. You get together with one of your girlfriends you haven't seen in a while. You don't, order a glass of rosé and then start asking, how are you doing? Are you sticking to your budget, or have you gone off track? No, usually we're talking about some other things, or catching up on a social, occupational, physical, intellectual side before we get to money. It's interesting. Women actually, statistically, especially older women, they would rather talk about their plans for death than talk about their plans around money, which is alarming, but also not surprising. So when it comes to our overall wellness, achieving the things we want to achieve, both for us mentally, physically, spiritually, everything else and those around us, money plays a critical role in that. So we can't ignore it or pretend like it doesn't. So what I like to talk about is the money mindset. I don't know about you, but I absolutely love meditation. I love listening to personal development podcasts, reading as much as possible, because it all influences the mindset that you're building for yourself, because where our focus goes, our energy flows. I'm a firm believer in that. And there's a lot that goes into what influences, what makes up that money mindset. So I'm going to give you just a second here. Take a look at all these different objectives, right? Like I said, some of it has to do with our current situation, has to do with our past situation, and it has to do with what's going to be coming down the pipeline for us in the future. And it's very complicated. It's not one-dimensional when it comes to creating your money mindset, just like the other mindsets that you have set for yourself. It's always changing. It's very dynamic. So you want to think about, okay, where do we start? So what I love is this acronym for wealth, and Kim and Victor have this in a worksheet. If this is something that you're looking for, this is a great exercise, especially I think around holiday season or to kick off the new year. What does wealth really mean to me? What's important to me? What's not important to me? Then maybe do this with your partner, and even doing this with your children. However old they are, it's never a bad idea to define as a family, maybe with your family culture, or you have young kids that are building that financial literacy. what does wealth actually mean? And oftentimes we find that what we feel like makes us wealthy is our relationships, it's habits and values, it's the legacy that we're trying to leave behind for others, the philanthropies that we give to, or the time that we have to, instead of work, put towards maybe a passion project. And it's interesting when it comes to those actually harder conversations around money, whether it's meeting with your financial planner or talking about money as a couple. I thought this study was interesting because it's women's participation in long-term investment decision-making. And we don't see this shifting much with younger generations. We don't see younger women getting involved in the conversation like we thought maybe they would. But what I think is still really important is 58%. So only about half of the women surveyed said their spouse takes the lead. The other half said either I do or we do share decisions equally. And when we're in relationships and partnerships, we typically divide and conquer. So the number that our industry wants to see grow is sharing decisions equally. And it's not making every single decision together, but even dividing and conquering in those long-term investment and financial planning decisions, because there are a lot of layers to them. This here is a study from back in 2018. Unfortunately, I haven't seen an updated version yet, but this is the confidence gap, what they called it. So a firm out in New York, they interviewed women of color, LGBTQ women, women overall, and men. And you can see the key down there. The men are in yellow, the women are in different shades of green. And they asked them 9 questions. The first 7, starting with, I'm satisfied with my current ... And then 8 and 9 were a little bit different. So if you're looking at what they asked, the cohort, women of color, LGBTQ women, women overall, and men, then they charted their responses. So I'm satisfied with my current level of debt, bank account balances, net worth. I feel financially prepared to face the unexpected. I know how to achieve my financial goals. So if you look at that, you can see there's obviously a disparity. Men feel more confident or more satisfied with where they're at with those 7 elements of wealth. They feel more financially prepared, and they feel like they know how to achieve their financial goals. It doesn't mean that they necessarily do know how, but they feel like we do. And a lot of that has to do with, like I mentioned, our foundations, the conversations we have, the level of education that we've had around money. But what I think is very important to notice is everyone's kind of around that 50% line. And why nobody is at 100% is because wealth and money is very complicated. That's why our industry, that's why Kim and Victor exist, because while you're really fantastic at what you do, you want to make sure you're outsourcing things that are so important, like your money, to the right professionals. So long-term financial planning needs, when we're thinking to the future, you've got your retirement, your long-term care, and insurance. Some of you on this call might not be thinking about long-term care necessarily for yourself, but maybe your aging parents. This is a really big conversation that we're having, a topic that's very much in focus, especially after this year. Mortality, health, sickness, it's all very much top of mind. So this might be a great time. Follow up with Kim and Victor, figure out what long-term care options you might need to be considering, because the earlier you get those plans in place, the better. But ultimately, what it comes down to is the balance. Why do we want to build wealth? Why do we have certain goals? What do we want to achieve? And then how do we get there? So very much the conversation now isn't so much having access to the markets or whether or not your portfolio beat the S&P 500 by 5%. It's about basing your investing strategy around your goals. So when it comes to money, there are 4 things we can do. We can spend it, we can lend it, we can give it, and we can grow it. Then with those 4 actions, there's typically 3 buckets that your goals are going to fall into, either your liquidity, your longevity, your legacy. Maybe this year you reevaluated your liquidity goals and you decided, well, instead of that vacation, because we can't go outside the country, we're going to put it towards an RV. And we're going to take the family to some national parks. So your goals are always going to be changing, but typically they're going to fall within these 3 buckets based on your time horizon. This is another great exercise to be doing at the end of the year, around the holidays. And just like every new year, we have that sense of renewal, new opportunity. Take a look at your goals. Sitting down with your financial professionals, with your partner, with your family members, have our goals changed, because that's going to ultimately dictate that how and that plan of how we get there. And again, just like finance, just like life, your plan is never one-dimensional. A lot of you on this call probably feel like this woman right here. Typically as women, we juggle a lot. We wear a lot of hats, personally, professionally, spiritually, what have you. And your plan, in the same respect, to help you reach those goals, is also juggling a lot of parts. It's very multidimensional. From defining your risk. So typically if you're younger, you're more risk on. If you're older, you might be a little more risk adverse, but it's absolutely up to you. I was giving this presentation in Arizona, in Phoenix, back in January before everything shut down. And this 80-year-old woman that was attending the presentation raised her hand at the end, and she was like, I want to know how I get into pot, right? Risk is totally something that is based on you. Diversification, of course, is a core theme. Never put all your eggs in one basket. But with those eggs in different baskets, not every egg in each basket is in the right basket at that right time. That's why rebalancing is so important. Your strategy is very rarely set it and forget it. But in order to understand where you should be invested, where you should be diversified, or where your risk might be needing to impact how we're changing what we're invested in, those review and strategy sessions are essential. Making sure you're carving out, dedicating time to talk to your financial advisors, talk to your spouse, talk to your family members. Because having that empowerment through the education and open communication around wellness and how money plays a part in it, or how money impacts our wellness, it's only going to make it easier as we start to practice having those conversations more and more with people in our lives, because transitions happen. Transitions often send money into motion. It's when relationships are reevaluated or life changes. There are those we can expect, and there are those we can unexpected. Global pandemic joined that list. My crystal ball was not working, and I definitely didn't see this coming. And something like this year, disruption, uncertainty, especially for business owners or individuals that own restaurants, some of these businesses, there can be, there's an impact, a windfall that can negatively affect your finances, which ultimately negatively affect your wellness. So having those conversations around what can we be doing to ensure that we're fortifying everything we've worked for while opening ourselves up to opportunities to take advantage of transitions. Another transitional conversation that's been very important this year, also talking about estate planning. If you haven't revisited your estate plan in a while, now is a very important year to get involved with that conversation, even just making sure that all beneficiaries have been updated, because hindsight's 2020. And this is a study, Own Your Worth. They interviewed widows and divorcees who have been through that transition, and these numbers are very high. 74% discovered negative financial surprises after a spouse passed away or after they got divorced. 76% wish they had been more involved, and 77% now encourage other women to take a more active role in their finances. And it doesn't necessarily have to be because of something that you've experienced negatively. It can also be because of something you experienced that's positive, that empowered you, that you can now take and share it with someone else. Another time I was giving this presentation, and a young woman that attended shared a story about how when she first started as a nurse, she was about 23 years old. Another young lady started with her. And the first thing that the young woman who attended did was went and opened up her retirement savings plan. She knew how important that was to her future. She knew she had time on her side. So she went, boom, got it opened. One of her colleagues, the one who started with her, did not. And the woman that attended, she encouraged her colleague for 2 years to go and open up that retirement account. And she made it her personal mission because she knew that investing now and letting it grow for the next 40, 50 years was going to put her friend, her colleague, in a much different situation when she goes to retire, give her a lot more freedom than it would if she never opened that account. So I don't think her colleague knows how much she owes a thank you to that woman that she started with, but it's incredible. And then there's things in our lives. A major place that a lot of women are finding themselves in is the sandwich generation. You're caring for aging parents while still often financially involved in your adult kids' lives. And it's interesting, statistically, women take 11 and a half years out of the workforce to raise kids and care for aging parents. So like I mentioned, that concept of long-term care, financial literacy education for the younger generation, maybe starting college savings plans for their future education, give you more of a tax advantage structure, investment structure. These are all things we have to be considering to not only help those around us, but also make sure you're protecting yourself. So like I mentioned, always great to get back to a little investing 101. And if you want these slides, please let us know. We'll make sure we get them to you. But investing 101. There are a lot of options and vehicles to put your money in because we have an incredible investment system here in the United States. You want a stock for growth, you want a bond for more fixed income, you want a little more diversification, exchange traded funds, and unit investment trusts. Those are the two products that if you ever see First Trust on your statement, or you're going into your next meeting and you know you want to own some First Trust, kidding. Those are the funds that we develop through our research and with our portfolio managers that your financial advisors can then use to put your money to work in whatever, based on whatever your goals are. And then of course, different accounts. Retirement accounts can get very tricky, especially when it comes to all these changes in tax laws. There are other unique accounts like that 529 plan that I mentioned that you can start for young individuals in your life. Maybe it's your kids or even your grandkids that help set them up. You let that money grow so when they go for higher education, they have some money already set aside for them. Some other numbers that I want to dive into here. This is one of my favorite charts. Even individuals who aren't as into the number side of things typically get a chuckle out of this chart. So this chart here was put together by our economists, and we have an incredible group of economists at First Trust. They're absolutely brilliant. So what this chart shows us is bottom line is a time horizon. So just before 2008 through third quarter 2020. I'm sorry, second quarter. It hasn't been updated from third quarter yet. On the left-hand side, you've got the value of an investment. And then the blue line with the blue underneath, that's the growth of the S&P 500. So one of the biggest indexes, you've all heard of the S&P 500. How has it done since just before 2008 through second quarter of this year? So if you take a look at this chart, you see at the beginning of it, just before 2008, you put $10,000 into the market. Then you let it ride through the end or through mid this year. If you look from 10,000 to just over 27,000, you more than doubled your investment, which I'd say in about 10 years, it's pretty good. But what's charted on there, all of those little plots are headlines. Headlines that at the time, if you were listening to the news, you were panicking. We were going back to the 2008 financial crisis. The world was going to end. The sky was falling. And yet the S&P 500 index kept growing. Even this year, back in March, when we saw a drastic pullback, the market has since recovered. So what this goes to tell us is, one, we have to be careful about blocking out the noise and not letting our emotional reactions dictate our investment strategy. And also, the sooner we get invested, the better. Time is on our side. So the longer we can let our money grow, the better position we're going to find ourselves. Last chart for you. This goes back even further. So the time horizon on the bottom, 1980 through the end of second quarter of this year. What this chart tells us, blue and orange, by the way, are for stress colors. So blue is how the market ended, or the S&P 500 ended at the end of the year. So end of December, just before the new year, where did the market end? Orange is how much the market pulled back during that year. So for example, let's say 1985. So from January 1 through the end of January 1985, at some point during that year, the lowest that the market pulled back, or the most it pulled back, was 9%. But if you had let your money ride, the market actually ended up back positive 15%. So taking a look, since 1980 through halfway 2020, how many times did the market pull back? Even just 3%. It's pulled back every single year. Volatility is very normal. It's unsettling. It's like turbulence in an airplane. You don't like it. You don't want it, but it's not uncommon. Then if you count the number of times that the calendar year returns were positive, there's a lot more blue in the positive zone than there is in the negative zone. So again, volatility, while it can be unsettling, it's not unusual. And if you are more risk on, volatility is your best friend because it means you get into the market at a lower price. It's so funny. The financial markets are the only industry that people don't like to buy when it's on sale. And I don't know about you, but I love a good sale. So again, volatility is not unusual. It can benefit us, but we always want to stay the course. So as we wrap this up, the thing that I want you to ask yourself, why we as humans, psychologically, why we outsource anything to someone else is because we do not have the time, the knowledge, or the desire to do it ourselves. It's why I love going to a workout class. It's why people love the Peloton bike. They can tune in and someone else will tell them exactly what to do and they get incredible results. That same study with the confidence gap. Why did women work with financial advisors? Well, it made them feel more confident. The fact that they were making a decision, they were in control, they were acting, able to invest, save, put money towards their goals with the help of someone very important. Again, that's why our industry exists. So if you have an advisor, you're thinking about getting an advisor, or you're just not sure, Kim and Victor would agree. It's all about finding the right fit for you, for your family, for your past, for your future. But you want those individuals that aren't just giving you access to the markets, right? That's basically free these days. It's about having a team behind you, having those other professionals that you trust, that are going to coach you, they're going to communicate with you, they're going to educate you, and they might have to hold your feet to the fire if they really need to. But you trust them, and you know that based on those goals, this is all part of how we're going to get there. So thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. Thank you to Kim and Victor for having me and for having First Trust be a part of it. The last kind of concluding thought is to think about one person that you as a woman joining this call can talk to. And it might be talking to yourself, having a very honest conversation with yourself right now, sitting down, revisiting your goals, maybe using that wealth worksheet, getting clear on what wealth really means to you, what's most important to you, and then sharing it with your spouse, with your kids, with your best friends, with your granddaughter, right? Has she set up her retirement plan? Is she set for a solid financial future? Because if we don't talk about this more, if we don't normalize talking about money, we aren't going to be able to achieve those 8 dimensions of financial wealth that are so important to us in the long run. So with that, Kim, I'll turn it over to you. I don't know if we have any questions.
Thank you, Jackie. It's so much good information you have provided today. So we have a couple questions that have come in, and I will ask them right now. So the first question from someone is that the presentation, Jackie touched on the confidence gap. And so the question is, do you find that women in tech who you serve suffer from this? Actually, that should be my question.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to pass that right back to you.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a great question. And I would say one of the reasons why I do really enjoy working with a lot of women in tech is because they have a high level of confidence to begin with. And so kudos to you. However, when it comes to their finances, I think that they have a lower level of confidence. That the chart that you you showed in the presentation is accurate in terms of the confidence. But I want to really address the skills because, you know, we hear as women, oh, we're not getting to the C level, we're not making as much money as men. But, you know, in the conversations I have with clients and with people I know, just networking with women in technology, is that a lot of them are making really good money. I see a lot more women breadwinners of the family, and they are moving up into the higher levels of management. And so I think that the skills are there. And when it comes to financial skills, I think that women don't give themselves enough credit because I do think that they know more than they say they know. So that's my answer to that one. Let's see. Another question that has come in is, how do you help women find balance? Do you
Oh
have any
gosh.
comments, or do you want me to talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. These are great questions, and I'm passing to you. You're the expert in all of these.
Okay. And it's funny because I feel like sometimes my role is also a coach or a therapist because I can see from an outsider's view what is so hard for you to personally see in your own life. And so it's tough. It's a struggle. A lot of people in technology work really hard up front. And then, you know, when they get to the latter years of their career in their mid 50s, then they start pulling back, which is interesting because, you know, we all wish we had more time while our kids are growing up than when they're out of the house. So I think what my position there is, you know, there's no magic bullet for that. I think they're tough choices and goals that you have to make. So you had mentioned the balance and goals when you were talking in your presentation. It's funny because that's a lot of what we do up front with our clients, is making sure we understand their goals. But more than the monetary, the dollar figure that people are thinking that we're going to address, it's more about the lifestyle goals. And I'll share with you all that this last weekend, I did some of my own vision boarding and goal planning. And it sounds cliche because everyone always coaches. I have a lot of business coaches and they're always telling me, do the 5-10 year vision and whatnot. But it's always been numbers. And this time I did it more on my lifestyle and what I want to see in 5 to 10 years. And wow, that process of writing down the goals and having a vision and attaching my lifestyle goals to that made my business goals actually, it incentivized me, or it motivated me more to get those things done. So think about your lifestyle and your goals, and then work around your career and the decisions that you make with your money and your career at the same time. You know, we have 24 hours in a day, so there's give and take there. It means if we are going to go out with our girlfriends for dinner and we're not worrying about a pandemic, then we are not going to be with the family for dinner. And sometimes that's good. You know, I'll sacrifice time with my family to go out with my friends sometimes because that's my wellness and my peace of mind. But other times when we have too much time with our family, understand that you're sacrificing, or too much time with your friends, understand you're sacrificing that for your family. And maybe you need to make that switch. And we could say the same thing with work when we're busy traveling or just have big projects. So it's always every yes is a no to something else. And when you're talking about balance, that's really important. Another question that just came in is, what is your financial planning process and how much does it cost? So this is a process where we really start with goals and finding out where you are right now, and then playing that out. So we have I like to think of it as ways for financial planning. On Waze, you have that easy calculation of where you're going. And if you hit traffic or an accident, it's going to tell you it's going to take more time to get to your destination. And our financial planning software is very similar to that, in terms of we're going to input everything that you are doing, your goals and your current assets, liabilities, and whatnot. And then we're going to make the software show you where you're going to go in the future and how long it's going to take you to get there. And then we do the same, I like to say, the same balance exercise with your goals, and to say, okay, if I can achieve my goals and retire at the time I'm 65, but that's not good enough for me, I want to retire at 55, then what do I have to give up today to get there? And so we play that game of every yes is a no to something else with your money and your savings to get you to where you want to be. And so that's the process. It is fun. It sounds, I don't know, all the data crunching is not that fun. But when you get to the very end part, when we're actually showing you all the different opportunities you have, that's really fun. And I see a lot of clients get excited. The wheels start spinning for them. So how much does that cost? It's different for everyone, but I will say in general, typically financial planning, just for the financial planning part, typically you can expect to pay somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000. But again, that's really a general estimate. It also depends on, what are all of your goals you need to save for, the assets, the liabilities. Are you single? Are you married? Depends on the work that's involved in it. As well as the second part of that is that we do invest assets for people too. So if you want to just say, you know what, you deal with it, you take care of it for me, then there's a difference in how we do that. But you have the opportunity to work with us and just, talk to us before. And like I said, you're never going to have to pay anything before you understand what's involved and what those costs are. And it's always up to you if you feel comfortable with that or not. Let's see, if someone is looking for help, how does one get started? Asking a lot of questions, I will say. So the process really starts with you organizing your investments, organizing your finances for us, because that's the first thing that we're going to do. Actually, let me take it a step back. Before we even get to the investments, I'm going to ask some of those lifestyle questions to see, where do you want to go? Are you happy with your current work lifestyle, or are you looking to slow down? I want to know those things up front. And then the second piece is the data collection. So gathering all of your accounts, understanding what you own, understanding what you owe, and also how much you're spending and how much you're saving. So those are things that we'll start with the process. I have one last question here, and can you help with more complicated cases, RSUs, and employee benefits? So yes, that's definitely a part of the process. I think it's fun working with restricted stock units and employee benefits, because a lot of the technology companies have a lot of really neat benefits. You work hard, but you also do have great benefits. And so that is a big part of our planning process with clients, is letting them know how much those restricted stock units are going to cost them in taxes, because it's very complicated. And then also saying, what do you do once you do vest in those RSUs? A lot of times people want to just keep it there in that account, but we do recommend a lot of times to diversify some of those that are vested, because it's a lot of eggs to have in one basket, which is also your employer. And so, we have a lot of conversations in regards to that, but I love the ESPP plans and restricted stock. If you going through an IPO or what have you, those are the benefits that can really make the difference in when you retire. And so they're a really important piece of the whole pie. Yeah, so let's see. With that, I don't have any more questions here. So if you do have any other questions, feel free. You can continue to email Victor at techgirlfinancial.com or myself, Kim, at techgirlfinancial.com. We want to thank Jackie very much for joining us today and giving us all of her knowledge. And we also want to thank you, all the participants that are here today. Remember, there will be a replay available so for those of you who did join late, you can have the replay and listen to whatever you missed at the beginning. So please remember, after this is over, you will get that survey at the conclusion. And if you'd like to meet with me or a member of our team, please send an email to kim@techgirlfinancial.com. And thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful Veterans Day. And also, one last thing I forgot to mention is if you haven't connected to me on LinkedIn yet, we noticed a lot of people did find out about this presentation through LinkedIn. Please do connect with me there. Thank you.